Thank you all for joining us today. This is Sharon Morgan, Director of Early Childhood, and I'm here along with our RSA team, Danny Calvin, Director of Elementary ELA, and Timmy Spangler, Director of Instructional Materials and Library. On behalf of Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction and Joy Hoffmeister and Dr. Cindy Koss, Deputy Superintendent of Academic Affairs and Planning, we welcome you to our RSA webinar, Being Prepared in the Absence of the OSTP Test Results. Maria Harris, the Director of Assessment and Data Literacy, will be joining us also.
The purpose of our WebEx today is to alleviate concerns,
be prepared, and create an action plan so that you can be ready.
We will now pass the mic on to Maria Harris from the Office of Assessment. She will give you an update and reasoning to why our test scores will be delayed this assessment season. Maria?
Why are we making new cut scores this summer for these new assessments? And the reason for this is because in 2016 we had new standards for English language arts. Along with that, we have new assessments that are aligned to these new Oklahoma academic standards for ELA. And because of this, we are going to have new cut scores that are aligned to the assessments and the content standards. So assessment standard setting. This is the process that allows Oklahoma educators to make expert judgments about the content that a student should know and be able to do in order to be reported in a specific performance level, so advanced, proficient, limited knowledge, or unsatisfactory. So committees of Oklahoma educators will convene and they will provide cut score recommendations to the Office of Oklahoma Educational Quality and Accountability. OEQA will make the cut score determination based upon policy and these committee recommendations. A common question that we get is why can't we determine these cut scores prior to the test administration? And that's because during these committees, educators will review the operational items and the data collected from the April administration, and they will determine a cut score first as an individual opinion and then as a group consensus, and they will provide this recommendation to the OEQA. So the timeline for this, next week, applications for standard setting will be going out. If that's something that you are interested in participating in, you can look through our admin newsletter or our teacher newsletter or on the assessments webpage. It'll be up front. We are having all standard settings for all content and grade levels, so be looking for that next week. The Grade 3 RSA Assessment Standard Setting Educator Committee will be in June from the 20th through the 22nd. And then the RSA preliminary reports will be available to districts in late July. And I have included my contact information, so if you have any questions that come up after this or as you talk to other folks, feel free to email me or call me, and I'd be happy to help you answer any of your questions.
Okay, in the absence of the test scores at the normal time, let's talk about the different pathways to be exempt from retention according to the RSA law. And remember, we've always looked first at test results, and now we're having to do that backwards. So the way the law currently stands, a student who scores at the unsatisfactory or limited knowledge level of the reading portion of the statewide test in third grade will not be eligible for automatic promotion unless...
So the multiple pathways are as follows. The first pathway, scoring at the end of third grade proficiency on the district adopted screener from the list of the 13 approved by the State Board of Education. Those State Board of Education approved screening instruments are as follows. Ames Web, Children's Progress Academic Assessment, Dibbles Next, the DRA, Easy CBM, iReady, Literacy First, MAP, MAG, M-Class Dibbles Next, STAR, and the Woodcock Reading Inventory.
Pathway 2 is qualifying for one of the 7 good cause exemptions, and those are listed on slide 20 through 30.
Pathway number 3 is successfully completing a summer reading program, SARP, and one of the following. Scoring at least the 45th percentile on one of the 4 state-approved alternative reading assessments, which will come up next, demonstrating mastery of the third grade reading skills through a student portfolio, and demonstrating an end of third grade proficiency on a district-adopted screener. Okay, here are the 4 approved alternative assessments that you can use. Notice that the proficiency is at the 45th percentile as opposed to the screeners, which are the 40th percentile. Pathway number 4 is receiving an approval for a probationary promotion through a conference with the student reading proficiency team, and that is then approved by the principal and the superintendent. So if you all decide that this student would best be served by moving on despite not meeting the test scores, you can probationary promote. The student reading proficiency team has to unanimously recommend this promotion, and then the principal and superintendent must approve. Okay, the student reading proficiency team must have parent or guardian, the current teacher, the teacher who would have responsibility the next year, and a certified reading specialist. It must be a certified reading specialist. Okay, let's just take a minute to compare and contrast the first and second grade proficiency team with the third grade proficiency team. So on the first and second grade, you have the parent, the current reading teacher, next year's teacher, and the reading specialist if available. So it's not required for that team. And the function of this group is remediation. What is the student doing? What do we need to, what interventions do we need? When we get to third grade, it changes a little bit. We still have the parent or guardian, current reading teacher, next year's teacher, and then in this one, the specialist, the reading specialist is required. And this team, along with interventions, is also responsible for a probationary promotion. So this is the team that would make that decision.
Okay, exemption 1 is a good cause exemption that if you have an English learner that's been had less than 2 years instruction in English and they've been identified as limited English proficiency or English learner on a screening tool that's approved by OSDE, they are exempt from retention.
Exemption 2 is students with an individualized education program and are assessed with the OAP. And this is the Oklahoma Alternate Assessment Program. Sometimes we call these students portfolio students.
Okay, exemption number 3, students who demonstrate an acceptable level of performance on an alternative standardized reading test approved by the State Board of Education. So these are the 4 alternative assessment tests. Here they are again. Notice that again on the alternative assessments, students have to show proficiency at the 45th percentile, and the screeners are the 40th percentile. So,
and a couple of really important things about these alternative assessments, you have to take the state assessment prior to taking an alternative assessment, and you have to wait 20 days, and that's 20 calendar days, not school days, 20 calendar days between administering different tests for the alternative assessment.
okay, we want to be clear too, even if the child has reached an end of the third grade level performance on a screener, they still are required to take the OSTP test. All right, good cause exemption number 4. Students who demonstrate through a teacher-developed portfolio that they can read on grade level. Portfolio shall include evidence of the student's mastery of standards and equivalent to what they would be tested on the OSTP. If you will go to the State Department of Education website and go to RSA teachers and coordinators, there's additional guidance there.
We're going to show you that at the end of our presentation. We'll take you to the website and show you.
Okay, so the portfolio requirements, that includes the demonstration of mastery in the 5 components of reading, should include clear evidence that reading comprehension and vocabulary have been met.
Okay, good cause exemption 5, students with disabilities that take the OSTP and have an IEP that states they have received intensive remediation for reading for more than 2 years, but they still demonstrated efficiency in reading and were previously retained 1 year and were in a transitional grade during pre-K, kinder, first, second, or third. And we've had some questions, Sharon, about the transitional grade, and a lot of schools, most of the time it's between kindergarten and first grade, but it doesn't necessarily have to be between kindergarten and first grade.
Right, so if you have a child that's been on an IEP and they went to kindergarten and then they went to transitional first grade and then first grade, that would count as a retention. So that child would be exempt from the retention law. So again, if they were on an IEP and they went to a transitional grade between two other grades, that does count as a retained year.
Correct.
Okay, good cause exemption number 6. Students who received intensive remediation for 2 or more years and have already been retained for a total of 2 years. And again, transitional grades count. So if they've received intensive remediation for 2 years and then they were retained in kindergarten, also went to a transitional grade, and then went to first grade, so that would be a total of 2 repeated years, then they would be exempt from the retention law under good cause exemption number 6.
Good cause exemption 7 is students facing exceptional emergency circumstances that prevent students from being assessed during the testing window. These requests must be approved through the Office of Accountability and Assessment. And they have very specific things you have to do to get these granted, and we have these listed, and there's a lot of information, but you have to do this no later than the last day of the testing window. If the testing window is closed, you've missed this process of being able to file for this emergency exemption. And so we have another slide also, and yes, this is a lot of information, but we put this on there so you can look at that and use it for your research and records.
Yes, so if you have a child with an emergency, you need to follow these steps, and you can of course contact the Office of Assessment or one of us, and we'll help you get that information if you need it. Okay, so what now? So we understand that these are extreme circumstances, and you all are doing the best you can to try to make decisions in the absence of the test. I do want to reiterate that in the history of the OSTP test and Oklahoma testing, we've never had this many new standards to do standard setting with. So this is an exceptional year and a year of transition. So bear with us and know that we're here to help you if you have any questions. And we want to work together to do the best for our children. So you're going to look at your students. And after you determine if your students are exempt from retention through the pathways or a good cause exemption, you're going to have a few students that you're unsure about, whose course would have been determined by the 3rd grade test. In the absence of the 3rd grade test, we recommend that you look at the overall performance of the child based on their classwork, screeners, and diagnostic tests. You should have some information about that child already. This information may also help you make decisions about a summer reading academy if you have one. If you know the child is low, they've struggled all year, and you are able to provide services for them in the summer, we would recommend that you do that. Should definitely have multiple measures there to assess the child. And then meet with your team and discuss what are the best options for the child going forward based on what you already know. What would you want to do? Would you want to probationary promote? Do you feel like the best course of action is to hold that child back? Discuss what options you have.
If you're not sure and you want to take another measure, you can have the students take the alternative assessment only after they have taken the OSTP. Remember that you have to wait 20 calendar days between administering alternative assessments.
We just want to remind you though, so if this spring you decide that you have a student that you don't feel is going to pass the test, but you would like to do the probationary promotion pathway, you need everyone to sign the paper unanimously saying that the best course of action is to move that child forward. If the child does meet RSA requirements in the fall on the test, we just need to make sure that you document that in the folder, that they have met criteria and that they no longer need the probationary promotion because they have met RSA criteria.
That's right, because students that are probationarily promoted or meet a good cause exemption, they will have to continue on a plan of remediation. And so you don't want to have to keep up with that paperwork if they have met that criteria. But by the same token, if you decide as a team to retain a student and you do the paperwork for that, and then they meet RSA criteria, you need to rescind that paperwork also.
So I'm on the Oklahoma State Department of Education website, and I just put RSA into the search box. Okay, and we're gonna go. Okay, I'm going to start you over here. You'll notice that you've got this navigation over here on the side. This is home. Okay, so you're going to have, you have a button here for the RSA legislation, parents, coordinators and teachers, and then the research. If you go to legislation, here's the rules.
And that's where you'll find all the individual requirements for the portfolio. So
Okay.
if you go all the way down, it'll show you. So this is where you would go to find exactly what you need, but we also have, I believe, a checklist that's attached to our APP that's on the coordinators and teachers page.
Yeah. I'm going to just really quickly go to the parent guide. There is a parent brochure on here that gives the basics. So if you need that, please grab it. Okay, here is probably for me the most used page, the RSA coordinators and teachers. The quick guide is very helpful. It goes over all the information that we just gave you, and it's handy to have. Okay. All right, here's the portfolio checklist. Just a reminder, here's the screening instruments and the alternative assessment list that we referenced earlier. So we're going to go down here to the portfolio checklist. So you just have to go through all of these. Here's the guidelines. Sure.
And that is in a Word document, so you can tweak it to make it how you want. You can add to it.
So here is the student reading proficiency team information for 1st and 2nd grade. Here's the probationary promotion form. Again, this is in a Word document, so you can type in.
And remember, this is what really sets this apart from the 1st and 2nd grade SRPT is that this one deals with probationary promotion, and you have to have a certified reading specialist on your team to sign off. And we have had the question, Sharon, about having, if no one else in the elementary has a certification except for the principal,
Right?
then the principal can sign off as the certified reading specialist.
And we had a question about if it's a national board certified reading specialist. You can be national board certified and not be a reading specialist. They have to make sure they take the certification test
Yes.
to be a reading specialist. You can contract that out, maybe talk to some local districts around you if that.
And also check with your retired teachers in the area. If they have their reading certification, it has to be current. So they're very picky about that.
Yes, we have to have a current reading specialist. Okay, we just wanted to let you know that we're all here to help you. So here's our contact information. If you need anything or you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call one of us. And we want to thank you.